All right, well, why don't we get started? Good afternoon. I'm Amy Longsworth. I'm the Executive Director of the Boston Green Ribbon Commission, and this is our GRCX about climate action planning. So the Green Ribbon Commission is a group of about 36 Boston leaders focused on climate change. We've been around since 2010. We also have 6 working groups that include many of you, probably touching something on the order of 80 institutions across the city. Everybody either learning, teaching, experimenting, leaning forward, working with the city of Boston to address the very dire consequences of climate change, which this being the 11th in a row record-breaking month for heat, is very much of top of mind to everyone. So this webinar features our climate action planning program and a couple of our about to graduate students. We hope that you or your institution will be a student as well, and welcome you to the webinar. I'm going to turn it over now to Dallase Scott, who is our teacher and can tell you more about it. And she's got two participants to go into more depth on the work that they have done this past year. I will add this coming year, which you can register for now, will start in September, and it will be our 4th year of running this program. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Excited to be here, excited to be able to share this program with everyone today. And I am thrilled to have our panelists here with Josh Meyer from Zoo New England and Tim Scarpa from AvalonBay. We have had a lovely chance to get to know each other. Josh was a graduate last year, and Tim and his team are graduating from the program this year. So it's going to be really fun to hear their stories. Next slide, please. This is going to be the run of show. Just Amy touched on this. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the GRC and the city of Boston relationship, and from that, how the collaborative climate action planning process was developed. A little bit of an overview. Then I'm going to pause on my side and pass it over to Tim and then Josh to share their experience and some of their outcomes from participating. And then I'll bring it back to share the theory behind the program, because it has been based in behavior theory and organizational change framework, and we're going to share that with you as well today. Next slide, please. So for those of you familiar with the City of Boston's Climate Action Plan, one of the things to note is that there's really 3 important areas of focus in Boston's transition to a more resilient and climate action city. So there's the carbon reduction goals, which you see on the screen here, as well as climate preparedness. This is preparing ourselves for sea level rise, for storms, water precipitation, for the heat days that we're going to be seeing. And then the real important insight that as we do this transition, we need to do it equitably, learning from our history of how policy has alienated and created these injustices within our community, and really thinking about our investment in an equitable transition. Next slide, please. So as Amy mentioned, the mission of the Green Ribbon Commission is to accelerate the implementation of the city's climate action plan by convening, organizing, and enabling leaders from Boston's key sectors. And what's really cool about this program is that it really does the convening and organizing and enabling. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Next slide. So we're going to dive into the program overview now. Next slide. It has been, we've had 3 years of our climate action planning process to date, and below you'll see collaborative climate action planning participants, past and present, and really it is a chance to jumpstart your work. A lot of the organizations we work with have a varying level of entry into the program. Some have had a climate action plan that went to seed years ago. Others had bits and pieces of ways that they've been working towards sustainability, but never had a strategic framework. So all of these organizations have been able to take part to create more structure to and use the program to guide them to take climate action. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at the cohort commitment here. By the numbers, it's a 9-month program, and we encourage up to 2 staff members to join as our climate leads. These are the point people. These are the folks who are meeting with our cohort and bringing what they've learned back to their organization. We have these 8 cohort working sessions that are every month. And also we have these 3 planning checkpoints, which is our kickoff, a summit where everyone shares their draft plans, climate action plans, and then we have our green ribbon cutting ceremony where people celebrate the hard work they've done. And really is an opportunity to focus on reducing the barriers to take climate action. There's a lot of moving pieces here. And so we really take it into bite-sized pieces. So if you own it, especially if you own a 2,000 square feet or more building within the city of Boston, you are looking at facing BERDO regulations. And so I know a lot of the organizations who have taken part not only had the advantage of learning about climate action, having a strategic framework to lean into, but also prepare themselves for BERDO regulations. Next slide. So one of the things we'd like to highlight is as we work together, it really is a better together approach. Because we're all working together, there's a cost savings to you, not only because you're utilizing multiple skill sets of the strategic advisors that are a part of this process, but also because there is a reduced cost through the contributions from the Green Ribbon Commission and others who have helped fund this work to make it low cost for organizations to join. We get to learn more together. We have ways to break through the echo chambers of our individual organizations and really learn from others. Community building, we really have been able to jump, kind of leapfrog over certain ideas because we hear from others and get this iterative opportunity. And it's also a built-in support group. So those who have graduated, Josh could talk about this, but those who have graduated can continue to utilize this cohort to ask questions, to see what other people are doing, to lean into the implementation phase of this. And then lastly, I would like to say that the Boston-based expertise, you have technical experts in climate mitigation, resilience and adaptation, and climate justice, who are all based in Boston and understand the regulations and understand the historical context within the city. We also have some coaches who have done their own climate action plans at their institutions and have a deep expertise as well. And so all of that really is a way to get so much out of this program. Next slide. One of the ways that we like to highlight this work is what we do is we have our cohort leads, it can be a group of 2 or 3 that come to our meetings, and they're absorbing, they're learning, they're asking questions, they're working with each other in breakout rooms and within their own organizations during work time. And if you go to the next slide here, they bring it back to the organization because we really wanted to make sure that this not only is an educational and learning opportunity for those who join, but it is an organizational change and engagement strategy to ensure the knowledge is uplifting the entire organization to get that buy-in. So at the end of the day, our cohort members don't just have a climate action plan, they have a contingency of people within their organization ready to implement the plan with them. Next slide. Here's a little Gantt chart to show you at the highest level what we're looking at here, right? So each of those little Zoom tiles you see there, those are our our Zoom meetings that are 2 hours. We also have office hours off to the side. So this is a chance for someone to catch up if they've missed a meeting, or if they joined a little late, that they can utilize that time to ask any additional questions specifically related to their organization. And the tail behind each of those checkpoints really is sort of the templates and homework assignments that allow the progress to happen in between meetings. Next slide. We also have created a guidebook and resources that allow access to all the materials asynchronously. So if we can go to the next slide here. We make sure that overview of the agendas are available in advance of meetings. We record all of our sessions so people can rewatch specific sections or share it with other members within their organization if they want to. And we've also curated some best practices to allow people to cut to the chase and what they need to do and where they can find the resources there. And this all lives on a Google site that everyone has access to. Next slide. So really, it's about learning, it's about workshopping, engaging, reflecting, and iterating. And what we've learned, if you go to the next slide, when we do this together, it amplifies the impact. And one of my favorite takeaways from this program is I hear so much about people saying we need to collaborate more, we need to take the learning insights from other institutions. And in this cohort, we really are walking the talk. We are actually learning from different sectors. We are able to bring people within our organization through this change process, and the collaborative framework is what makes it a successful program. Okay, next slide. So with that, I'll pass it on to Tim to talk through AvalonBay's experience and their plan. Tim.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having us on. I'm Tim Scarpa, Senior Portfolio Maintenance Director for AvalonBay in the Boston Urban Portfolio. Ryan Eunice from Engineering, who covers Massachusetts and Florida for us, is a big part of this, and also Olivia Larson, who's a maintenance coordinator. So there was 3 of us on this cohort. That's like Dallase said, about to close out pretty soon here. For Avalon, our initial driver in interest to this, like Dallase said, was the BERDO reporting requirements and just trying to get together with folks that were also doing this based on our responsibilities for the company and our ESG goals for the company. We were invited to join by Dave Gillespie, who's our Senior Vice President for Development here in Mass. He's also a lead rep for the GRC for our company. But right out of the gate, in the first meeting, I quickly realized it was going to be a very collaborative project between all the organizations involved towards helping map out your own goals, but also sharing out your own experiences and best practices, also challenges that you're facing. And we found that there's a lot of expertise geared towards maybe one specific thing, but the other 2 pieces, were a little less traveled for each. With us being specific to building operations and maintenance and engineering, we had a good understanding, and we're already underway in planning towards BERDO execution. So I think this was helpful for a lot of others in the group to hear our expertise in that aspect of things, but also helpful for us to hear how institutions like Suffolk University is a part of it, and Fenway Community Development has some, similarities to us. So we were able to hear from them how they were approaching things. And beyond the technical side of the project, we were able to better understand and be educated by expert coaches, participating organizations, and the GRC members in climate resilience and climate justice, which we know about, but don't dive into in our own roles within the company on a daily basis. So that was hugely helpful. You can go to the next slide. This is just a list of the buildings that are our initial targets for BERDO specifically. But in the climate resilience and climate justice, we were able to kind of layer that into some of our action planning beyond just the energy reduction. Some of the tools provided in the sessions were give really important foresights that can help facilitate useful meetings with a lot of different people in our company that may have not been involved in our conversations. As an example, we have a corporate ESG group that looks at the whole country for us, but we're very focused in just Boston, so we were able to kind of tie them into some of the local stuff through this that they weren't previously involved in, which helping some of our corporate buy-in and in capital planning and things like that. But through those tools, we were able to kind of see the 10, 20, 30-year outlook for things like sea level rise that are specifically going to affect some of these properties, some of the stormwater systems that might be affected in areas that we have buildings, to actually see it on a in a model was very effective for our asset management group and things like that, for buy-in for some of the resiliency approaches in CapEx and things like that. You can go to the next slide, please. This is just a little bit about our BERDO stuff and our overall science-based targets that we already had that we were able to layer in. Dallase is a great facilitator. She, with all of our busy schedules, she helps keep us on task. It's not easy to make time for anything these days, I think, for anyone. But it was helpful to have the framework and the accountability checkpoints and things like that. Helped us really kind of put together in detail what we did in the timeline. We wanted to get it done. It's like we have to do this stuff anyway. This really helped us kind of format it and be more effective than I think we would have on our own. Next slide, please. I think you can skip this one. There's some climate resiliency maps in the one more, sorry. There we go. So this was put together by Ryan Eunice with some of the tools that we have, or that we were given, just as an example. But I think the biggest thing is, and lastly and most importantly, is the opportunity to make new connections, gain further education, get unbiased feedback, build a network of peers. It's going to be a big part of our industry, all of our industries, for a long time. It wasn't an opportunity we wanted to pass up, to kind of get together and help get from the theory aspect and strategy aspect of things and really start putting things on paper with a lot of different organizations that we probably wouldn't have been in touch with outside of this. The benefits of that, I think, will extend much longer than even the program itself. So that's pretty much it. It's been great. Thank you.
All right, we'll pass it on to Josh now. Josh, oh, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim, for your presentation. And also, AvalonBay gets to be our host for our green ribbon cutting ceremony this year. So we get to take advantage of one of those beautiful buildings in Boston. All right, Josh, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, thanks, Dallase. And thanks, Tim, for sharing that. It was so cool to see what's come so far out of the action planning process for you. And I'm also echoing what you said about Dallase. I think for any of you on the fence about doing this climate action planning, it's so fun working with Dallase. Great facilitator, as was said, and just the content so well organized. We have great discussions. Information is very well chunked. It feels like you're doing a really fun online college course, and you're just kind of asynchronous with sometimes the synchronicity. It's wonderful. I think for anyone on the fence, that alone, it's just really fun. I'll also say too, this is probably the best $3,000 to $5,000 you'll spend. You get an incredible return on investment on this. So I'll just give you a quick kind of intro about me. Josh Meyer, Curator of Horticulture and Sustainability at Zoo New England. Started the climate action planning process in 2021, fall 2021. I actually started at the zoo fall 2021 at that same time, but my cohort actually started several months earlier. So we had someone at the zoo who started the climate action cohort, and then they left the zoo. And so I kind of took over, caught up quickly, and it just kind of has been, it was fun ever since from there, just kind of taking over and going through that process. So what I'm going to do right now, just kind of give maybe some highlights of what the zoo has been able to achieve since going through this process, and pretty much because of this process. I just want to give you a couple good reasons why you should sign up, and then just kind of circle back with more information about the zoo. So you can probably do the next slide. So I'm just going to go over probably like 5, 6, 7, 8 highlights of things that we've achieved since we've gone through this process. So one thing is we were awarded a $60,000 grant for tree canopy health. So essentially we planted this spring 300 trees at Franklin Park Zoo that will help with sequestering carbon and helping with our tree canopy health and helping with the heat island effect. So I can get into that a bit longer. This is all part of our climate action plan. So this was pretty much because we had a climate action plan, we were able to get this grant. Another grant we were able to get was $10,000 for resiliency planning. So we hired a company to help us get to and put together a net zero pathway plan, a carbon neutral emission plan to help develop a greenhouse gas inventory. If we didn't go through this process, we wouldn't have known how important that was. So this is pretty much like $10,000 of services that we're able to get through a grant to do that. We also just this past year got $13,000 to finish our sustainable transportation goals, which we established as part of the collaborative action planning process. So we're going to be putting up these cool custom-made bike racks at both zoos. And this is part of a larger sustainable transportation plan. We have a electric bus that we put in last year. So it's just kind of adding on to that. Another really cool thing we've been able to do because of this is working with volunteer groups. So we have a lot of our corporate volunteer group contingency is pretty strong here at the zoo. So my department, we're getting 2 or 3 groups every week to come help with horticulture, landscape projects, sustainability projects. Right now, the past 2 years alone, we've got about $10,000 in corporate donations and able to do our climate projects. So this is not just labor, this is just money. And then of course, if you add up like the man hours, it's a lot more after that. We've done about $30,000 in native planting the past couple of years as well. Something we're working on right now is EV charging at Stone Zoo. So we're putting in a couple of DC fast chargers as well as level 2 chargers. And this is all, as well, having this framework, having this climate action plan to help us know where we're going, to give us a direction, to help us, find the right people, connect us with the right expertise. So we found a great company that's enabling us to do all this charging work for under $17,000. We just got our $17,000 mass EVIP grant letter a couple weeks ago to help keep the costs really low. Because of this climate action planning process, we've also launched a sustainability innovation tour. So we have a template. We piloted this innovation tour with this cohort, and we had the cohort come over and we started it there. And now we're probably going to be doing this yearly to kind of talk about all of our sustainability initiatives and on-site work at both zoos. We've done some green infrastructure work the past couple of years, or starting this year at least. So we've teamed up with the City of Boston, their green infrastructure unit. We've been doing rain gardens and step rain gardens, all these really cool best management practices in stormwater management. So all because of this, put together a climate statement, which has been really cool, which has been amazing. And then I'll say one thing that we've done that was almost a mistake, we almost avoided a disaster, was we got some COVID money and put together a solar array at Stone Zoo. So our parking lot is this one large solar canopy where it produces about 800 kilowatts of energy. This is like enough to power like 30 domestic houses, and it completely offsets our electricity at Stone Zoo. But we almost messed this up. So we at this point, this was before we were part of the Green Ribbon Commission. We weren't quite sure how do I say this? So we almost messed this up in the sense of there's a chance where, had we known better, we probably would have done this at Franklin Park. But if we were more closely working with the Green Ribbon Commission, they could have helped us better site this and use it in a way where it could work towards BERDO. We've since learned we're able to use this for BERDO, but there's a scary situation where we're almost in this position where we might not have been able to use our renewable energy credits for BERDO. So that's one example. I'll get into that. I'll get into more of that in a second. But so here's our highlights. Let's see. So I see on the slide Stone Zoo. So Stone Zoo, 26 acres. A lot of different animals, a lot of different areas. So someone's on the slide, just want to mention the parking lot. That's where the solar canopy is. I think the previous slide showed you where Franklin Park Zoo is. Yep, so you're on that now. Franklin Park Zoo, 70 acres, a lot of trees. So tons of space for tree work and resiliency work. When I talked about that work we did with the grant we received from Liberty Mutual, $60,000 for tree work. That was at Franklin Park as well. So next, so I kind of gave you some highlights. I want to use this time, not too much time left to go through like 4 good reasons why you should sign up. It's kind of related to those highlights. So first is if you have a volunteer program, they volunteer corporate groups, it's getting more competitive. So they're going to come to you and they want to know, they're going to ask you, why should we work with you? How is your sustainability goals aligning with our sustainability goals? And so for us, we found by having a climate action plan, by like having a clear framework roadmap to display to them, to show them of what we're going to do, it really helps and goes a long way. So there's groups that are paying you money to come to your organization to do work at your site. So we've had several corporate groups. They're giving us, like I mentioned, $10,000. It's $2,000 here, $1,000 here to do things like food forests, to help with environmental justice in our community, edible spaces. And so that's a lot of work we've done in this last couple of years. So that's been really helpful. And this climate action plan really helped us with that. So that's been like amazing. Another thing is grants. So reason number 2 is grants. So if you're, applying to grants for climate action, for sustainability, these grantees are not going to take you seriously unless you have a framework, unless you have a plan, unless you're really demonstrating to them that you've thought this through, that you have been working with your organization to have a roadmap of all the work you want to do. And so because we have our climate action plan, every grant I apply to, that has to do with climate, the first paragraph is saying, we have, worked with the Green Ribbon Commission. We have a climate action plan drafted. We're going to be finalizing it, this year. And it, explicitly lays out, here's our goals, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, here's how we're going to get there. And it's just been really helpful for tracking in that way. Third one is BERDO. So, I think mentioned we did the cohort 2 years ago. We're still coming back. I'm still very involved in going to a lot of these Green Ribbon Commission talks and meetings and discussions, because BERDO is so important for helping us together as, City of Boston to kind of come together to help with our climate goals. So for us, the zoo, we're looking at, $200,000 in penalties every year if we don't do anything, if we did nothing. And so for us, that $3,000 to $5,000, membership, that's a pretty good return on investment if they're going to help us, avoid, all those penalties. And so they've been helping us, work with the BERDO team and help us really figure out how we need to go from there. So we're able to use our renewable energy credits from the solar solar array at Stone. But there's also, so many other steps we need to take, because right now we're working on a hardship compliance plan, and they're just really helping us kind of get to that point. Another point I had was, the networking and the expertise, very low cost there. So you're connected, and Dallase mentioned this, to so many different experts in different assets and facets of climate. And it's been so helpful for us. We're connected to all these different people. It's finding us new opportunities, new funding sources. It's amazing. So that alone has been worth it on its own. And then, yeah, that was my four reasons. And then I think the lastly, I just kind of wanted to end with, advice. So, when selecting someone, on your team, I think, well, at the very end, I think what I want to point out too is that, sustainability is only 15% of my job description. So most of my job is really landscapes and horticulture, managing the grounds and working with the connection between plants and animals at Zoo New England. Sustainability is 15% of my job. This week, I haven't really done too much climate work, to be honest with you, but some weeks I'm doing a lot more. But I just want to use that to demonstrate that you don't need a full-time person in sustainability. I think the most important thing you need is someone who's a super connector, someone who's kind of passionate about this, someone who can find the time, someone who can, connect with your leadership and really, communicate the importance of this to your leadership, and someone who's persistent. I think above that, just having those traits are really important. And then just working with Dallase, you'll be fine. I think you'll really have a good time. I'm just trying to think of any kind of last minute stuff where, if anyone's on the fence, I just can't see. If you're on the fence, reach out to me, put some stuff in the chat, because there's so many benefits to this. So I think that's my time. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Josh. I was glad that your tile was had a spotlight, because I blushed quite a bit. Thank you for that shout out. I appreciate it. And it's been, as I've mentioned at the start, it is just so fun. I get to work with a lot of amazing people across the country. And when people ask me what's my favorite project, this is definitely it, because of walking the talk, how collaborative it is. And the breadth of organizations I get to work with. So I'm going to jump into this theory behind program design. My background is psychology and behavioral change, and I've leaned into organizational change and design within that framework. So when the GRC reached out to me about designing this program, I got super excited, because I really wanted to build it on that behavioral theory framework, right? Because not only are we looking at organizational change, we're looking at developing change agents like Tim and Josh and others who participate in the program to lead their change. So if I can go to the next slide. When I think about behavioral change, there is this thing called behavioral elements, coined by BJ Fogg of Stanford. And these are all these different elements that could either help support a behavior or hinder a behavior, right? So this could be whether you have the infrastructure in place, how hard is it, how hard your brain cells have to work to understand something, right? Financial, whether you have the funding, social deviance being, am I going with the flow or against the flow to change my behavior here? The amount of time you have, whether it fits into your routine, and then sometimes just the physical effort, right? Like showing up and doing it. So if you can go to the next slide. One more. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's out there is a lot of the infrastructure, like the how-to manuals. You can Google online like climate action plan, and you're gonna find a whole lot out there. But the reality is that only does a check mark of one of these behavior elements. We need to support people through the entire process, especially if they don't have a sustainability staff member, right? I think Josh is one of the few people who even has sustainability in their title at all. Majority of the people who've joined do not have sustainability in their title. So if you can go to the next slide, we wanted to shift from just the check mark on the infrastructure, and I put running shoes there because I find it a good analogy, right? Like if you want to eventually run, I don't know, the Boston Marathon, if I were to give you a pair of running shoes and say, there you go, you're ready, like everyone would laugh. We know that running shoes does not get you to complete the Boston Marathon. It's going to take, how do I train? It might, the fundraising potentially to be a part of it, unless you're an elite athlete. There's like, I'm going to have to run when my friends are just hanging out and watching Netflix, right? There's all these pieces. I have to create time for it. I have to have part of my routine. And then I actually have to take the steps to make it happen. So if you think about it, that's what we're doing. We, the technical experts, the GRC coaches, all the meetings that we have, we get to be the personal trainers that guide all of our fantastic participants through this framework together. And it's a team. It really is a team. You're not doing it by yourself. Next one. So the things that we've considered to really make it user-friendly is when the first cohort was all cultural institutions, just as COVID was like starting to end. I think there was like another, it reared its head another time, but we wanted to make it accessible to cohort members that cultural institutions who had lost a lot of staff, who are rising out of the ashes of COVID. If they could do it, we thought it was gonna be be a successful program. So we knew it had to be user-friendly. We knew we had to have people just focus on one task at a time, so it didn't become overwhelming, and to provide that guidance and create accountability in our checkpoints and within our meetings. Next slide. We also wanted to support the curation of best practices. There's just a lot out there, like with anything. I like try to find a recipe to make Spanish rice and I'm overwhelmed, right? And so we really have spent a good amount of time with our technical experts, with the City of Boston resources, and with others to cut to the chase and say, start with these. We think this is a really helpful starting point. Similarly, we have tools and templates. So people can take the guesswork out of a blank sheet of paper and say, start with filling this out. We think this is going to be helpful for you. And they're allowed to veer right, veer left, you know, do something that works for their organization, but we give them that starting point. Next up, and next slide, please. And then there's capacity building. As Tim mentioned, one of the things we do is we provide facilitation training. That allows you to be able to be that change agent within your organization, to realize there's going to be other stakeholders you're going to want to talk to, engage with, to run effective meetings. And then also it's just that skill set of like even knowing how to talk about climate action. Josh mentioned to this, and I know Historic New England also mentioned this. It's really hard to be able to ask for grant money if you don't know how to tell the story about what you're doing. Right? So learning about this, being able to have a plan, being able to string together a thoughtful story that is telling what you're up to and why you're doing it is a skill set in and of itself that you will be able to bring back to your organization. And then if we get to this last slide here, next slide, it's engagement focused. And that really is realizing that not only are we building trust within our cohort, at the end of our time together, I feel like family. I think that's what Josh is saying. It's like a fun group that you get to work with. But we also want you to build that trust and that buy-in of other people within your organization. We have a lot of time talking about how to manage up if you are not the leader of your organization to move this forward. And that at the end of the day is where people don't just end up again with a climate action plan that gathers dust, but one that is implemented, knowing that they have a network they can lean on for the entirety of their implementation process. Next slide. So the final takeaway that I hope you walk away with is that this is a highly subsidized program. And hearing Josh's like check marks of the grants he was able to get, I was like, ooh, yes, that is a lovely return on investment. There's that refined program that we've developed and iterated with based on feedback over the years, and with facilitation. We have our technical experts and coaches. And then you have that cohort community for continued support. And our cohort members, you know, they keep growing. So you get to continue to pull from a broader group of people for each graduating class, which has been really lovely to see. Next slide. So I think I'll end with this, which really is climate change is bigger than any person, institution, or city. And by taking action together, we can make a real difference for our loved ones, our city, and our world. We cannot do this alone. And I think we have to untrain ourselves to have a business model that's all competitive, right? We really have to lean into this collaborative framework if we are going to make that impact that we need to do at the urgency and the pace in which we need to do it. So with that, I am done, and I think we can open it up for questions.
Amazing. What an incredible cohort. And I think this is actually such a great opportunity for all institutions in Boston to really take advantage of, whether, you know, obviously we have two very different institutions present with us today. One's commercial real estate and one is a cultural / and environmental. I don't know what the zoo actually qualifies as, but, you know, I think they straddle multiple lines. So it's just a great example of the different diversity of institutions that could really benefit from this, which is actually the question that I want to start with is how, Dallase, do you think this program supports such an array of organization types and sizes?
Yes, this is the fun part of this work is there is a a general arch and structure for any strategic planning process. And I think the real focus is to create structure that has the space for organizations to kind of design to their size and their type. I'm actually really curious, though, to hear from Josh and Tim how you saw it work for the different organizations you've been with. So maybe I'll start with you, Tim, and then Josh.
Yeah, sure. For us, as I said before, we do have like a corporate ESG team, and that's, I would say, for the last maybe 3 years with Avalon has been really, started to be one of our like core achievement goals. Really just a big part of our overall organization. But I think the other side of our business is profit, right? Like that. And how do you sort of gauge a lot of this costs money and that dips into your profits, and finding the balance between those things, I think is the best, the best piece for us to be able to really create a framework that can help explain that and articulate that on a, to Josh's point, like on a return of investment type of scale. So for us, I think it's really just creating something that's very complex and helping summarize it, as well as meeting our overall, company goals environmentally and things like that. It's such a big topic, such a broad topic. It goes in so many different directions. So without kind of gathering together and putting a lot of work into it, it just kind of gets kicked around, right? And the discussions stay in this like point of or difficult to put action to. So I think this was really helpful for us to kind of get things into action, from somebody like my level all the way up to, executive leadership.
Right. So it kicked you out of just the ideation phase into an implementation framework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with a very big organization with a more like a for-profit framework for your organization.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Josh, to you.
Yes, Dallas, the question was, how do we get to the implementation? Is that
No,
kind
the
of-
question was like how like you were in the program with like totally different organizations. I mean, Tim and Josh
Yeah.
weren't at the same time,
Yeah.
but you both have like an outcome from it. Like how do you see that working for a platform that works for a zoo and an organization like AvalonBay? Like that, how did that work?
I think it was great because we can bounce ideas off each other and kind of get different perspectives. And sometimes it helps to see, a case study in a different light, a different application. And sometimes we're pigeonholed and we're tunnel vision of only cultural institutions. But, in my cohort, we had like Emerson College, for example. So being able to talk with Jennifer at Emerson, and kind of under that lens, it really opened up a lot of opportunities. I know like we both kind of work with the same waste management group for dealing with our recycling and waste. And so the fact that she worked with them too, we could talk about it under a sustainability, lens, that same, language. It was really helpful to, understand, how we can change our practices. And I think they were way ahead of us in certain areas. And I think we were kind of more advanced in some areas. So like, there's a lot of like sharing there. So it was, just really helpful in so many ways. And I think we had a very kind of diverse cohort. I think we had Historic New England on ours, and Emerson and others. And so I think the differences help. I think, of course, what's been helpful for us too is that, we've had like the aquarium that has been involved in this. And so sometimes you don't really talk with your competition in a healthy way much. And so not that we're like really competitors, I think in market share maybe, but it's been a really cool way to facilitate, conversations with, competitors, and especially in like, the commercial real estate. I'm sure you have a lot of competitors, Tim. So I think it's kind of a cool way to kind of have this, collegial type environment where, you're sharing intellectual capital, but, what your overarching goal is, which is helping the city of Boston, helping with their climate goals. So these are all things we should be working together towards. So, yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's incredibly helpful and hopefully helpful to all those watching. So there's always going to be questions around BERDO, and I think that's probably going to like the biggest headache on everyone's minds, and how everyone is moving forward for their work in Boston. So can you all share a little bit about your process of how you benefited from the program on BERDO, and kind of what questions you had answered, and what, moving forward, what questions you may have that others would be able to benefit from their experiences?
Yeah, sure. I think I would say specific to BERDO, one, it was helpful to hear that the challenges we were facing with it was relatively unanimous. So, data, I think, a lot of folks know by this time some of the challenges and improvements that we want made to help clarify the process, and really see what's going on. But even through that, I guess an example is we are moving towards in-house data verification. So trying to model our own with metering through our engineering department and things like that, because we don't really know when the data is going to come to us. So we now know that we're best suited to go grab it ourselves. Where if we were, alone in the process, maybe we would mull that question over for another year or two, but I think it helped solidify that this was a unanimous problem that we probably should kind of jump ahead of, and it helped frame what are we going to do about it, what can we do about it. Now we have what we can do about it, and we're going to move forward. So
it gave you the nudge to that proactive approach.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Josh, how about you? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what don't people know that they should know, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, at Zoo New England, so the one building we have to report for BERDO is our tropical forest building. That's our big biodome that has the gorillas and lemurs and sloths in there. Really cool building, but it's a really unique, one of a kind building that pretty much is a canvas roof, and so there's a lot of energy loss. This was built in the 70s, before the economy car revolution and probably the oil embargo, probably just before all that was going on. But essentially, we had to replace the boiler on that like a couple of years ago, and it was a gas boiler, and we were trying to make geothermal work. It was just too expensive. This was before all the IRA, Inflation Reduction money, and all this money that came out, and so we just had to do another gas boiler, but we were able to make it 7% more efficient, but still it's gas. And so it's kind of challenging as we're trying to become carbon neutral and reach these climate goals with the city of Boston. And so it's been challenging, and I'm just so glad that we're part of the GRC. It's happening just in time for us. I mentioned we have this solar canopy project at Stone Zoo. We're able to use the credits. We own the credits. We're able to use those to help with the electricity to offset those with BERDO, but we're still on the hook for the gas and the carbon. And so right now we're looking, if we do nothing now, we're looking at $200,000 a year, easily going forward. And so so I think for us, we're kind of a very unique situation, unique building, cultural institution, one of a kind building. So where we've what we're trying to do now is just really demonstrate to, the city and that we're working towards, reducing our emissions and, heading towards that direction. And so we've been, I think any opportunity you guys offer to help people learn about BERDO and to help learn what it entails, offering that for expertise. I think someone on it was either, our president, CEO, John, or our COO, Bob Chabot, or myself, or Jen. So one of us was there to learn and understand what opportunities are there, where can we get help? And so there's, a couple of really great sessions that had, technical advisors on hand to really help, people understand. I'm seeing some Q&A questions about BERDO. Those are the answers. You'll get those answers if you go to these sessions. There's that free technical expertise to tell you, when, how do, am I, how am I part of BERDO? How do I know I'm gonna, be under BERDO? And so it's been really helpful. And so I think for us, it's helped, ease a lot of that anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety. This is a lot of money that could be at stake. And so, but once you kind of sift through it, once they help you work through, like, there's all these different options. There's individual compliance plans, there's hardship compliance plans, you have, several years and decades to work on this. It's really, it was scary for me probably 6 months ago, and now I feel great about it. So I think you just gotta just be involved,
Josh,
Thanks
I'm
for my
so,
message
go
that.
ahead. What's
It
that?
was, it was scary to me 6 months ago, and now
Oh, no.
I'm excited for
It was
Yeah.
scary to me 6 months ago, and now I feel pretty good about it. Now I'm not, anxious about it, because I know, what the options are. I know what the paths are. We've been connected with so many great experts who are showing us, what our options are. So I think, always having options, always having contingencies, that's when I think you feel better about things. And I think 6 months ago, we didn't know what our options are. There's a lot of stuff in the dark. And so because the GRC had so many of these, webinars and free resources and free technical advice, it just really helped us, daylight, a lot of the concerns we had, connecting us with experts. So we feel great. I feel great now. And so we're, working towards that. So
Josh, I'm so glad you mentioned the anxiety that you're facing around this, because this year's cohort, one of the shared concerns that our cohort members had is they're feeling there's a little bit of like sharks circling them about like, we can help you. And one of our organizations, the firm that they were working with, was giving them more efficient equipment, but they weren't thinking about the programmatic goal that they had to be decarbonize their building, right? So they were about to lock into fossil fuel infrastructure that they need to keep for another 30, 40 years, right? And so because they're part of this program, we're like, whoa,
yeah,
slow down. Like, you need to think about, like the electrification of your building and what that looks like. And here's some questions to ask the people who are sending you proposals or like asking to work with you, because there's a lot of people who know that BERDO is like breathing down organizations' necks. And if you don't have like sort of like stay calm and like be a part of the
yeah,
collaborative climate action plan, if you're just gonna like be very tactic driven versus being able to zoom out and realize I need to replace this, but I also need to think about resiliency, right? Maybe we don't replace everything back into our basements. Maybe we think about, minority-owned businesses to work with through this process to really center climate justice work. Maybe there's so much more that you can think about if you go through this program, so you don't make a jump move, because you usually make those decisions when it's like, oh crap.
scary. Yeah,
When you're in
fast,
when you're in
yeah.
you have to make it fast. And if you
Yeah.
had a plan, you can make a smarter decision. So
I
thank
think
you for voicing that.
Yeah, I think at Tim's organization too. I mean, they're going to be poised to be like leaders in sustainability, leaders in climate. People are going to be, looking upon them in the next years, because they're piloting this. They're in early, and so would you rather spend all this money in penalties or doing things you can be a leader on? So that's really where you have to decide. So.
Yep. Absolutely. And the other, I would say the last thing there is, the campus approach versus individual building approach was another thing that was nice to sort of discuss broadly as a group. There's a lot of different ways to look at things overall, but just that feedback loop was really helpful and I think will continue to be, because every 5 years BERDO is subject to change as well. So that can be updated, and curveballs could come once every 5 years, and we have to sort of regroup and adjust strategy potentially, but we'll see.
Right, to be adaptive.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So I do have one for you, Dallase, that I think is a little bit based off of one that's someone asked earlier in the chat on framing, and what institutions can learn about framing their own narrative for both their external audiences, whether that's about, reaching audiences that maybe are in environmental justice neighborhoods, or audiences that they haven't before been serving that the way in the way that they need to be, or actually, and internally when they're approaching their senior leadership, and they're attempting to like get their buy-in for the climate action that needs to happen. What kind of framing can they learn from this program?
Yeah, I think one of the things we talk about is start communication and start it early. And if you utilize a framework where you're doing outreach and you're chatting with people in this like the earliest form, like the draft form, you can actually learn from your community what they care about. And then when you do create your framing and your messaging, you can tell the story from the lens that is going to be more impactful for them. And similarly, internally with leadership, I think you have to understand where their values lie and what they're responsible for, and where the job description is telling that, like where their performance is evaluated, and understand that piece. Sometimes we drive home our communication only through our value set. And then we miss the opportunity to bring people into that. Another organization, the Isabella Student Gardner Museum, mentioned that historically they would never be able to talk to members about fundraising for anything infrastructure. It's always more around their what am I trying to say? Their programming, right? But because they have learned that their members care about climate action also, and they recognize that the beautiful things that reside within the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, including the building itself, is at risk because climate change, they were able to actually do the fundraising to help protect that space. That is huge for anyone who has to like kind of manage their budget, and that has become a strategic driver for their organization. So sometimes I think we forget to ask and to involve and to engage others. And instead of trying to like just guess what is going to be the influencing message for people within your community, especially if you reside in a climate justice community, start having conversations with them. They will let you know what matters to them. And I think that is one of the big takeaways that I hope people have in this is if you have the tools to be a better communicator and a better collaborator, you're going to move so much faster because you're bringing people along with you. And you're not just like telling them what's going to happen at the last day of your work.
Well, amazing. Amy, Dallase, do you have any other closing things to add or ask before we close today?
I'll just say, this has been great. And Tim and Josh, thank you. I feel like we should, you've been so enthusiastic. I feel like we should tell you the bad sides of it or something, but it's been really good to have you. And I hope that everyone in the audience has a flavor for what we do and that you will consider joining us. Or if you're not an institution, just tell all your friends and spread the word. We really want to get more and more different kinds of organizations in and prepared for the long haul, because that's what Boston has to do. It's going to be a long haul, but we have to do it quickly. So thank you, everybody on the call, and we'll see you soon. Have a good Memorial Day.
Yeah, happy holiday weekend. And I did just pop the Google form in the chat. So if you were interested in registering for the 2024-2025 cohort, please fill that out and we will get back to you. All right. Thanks, everyone.